So the trade war is escalating. The China has responded to the tariffs by dumping $100 billion worth of U.S. treasuries, causing treasury rates to spike. We also have an interesting clip that I want you to listen to from Howard Lutnick, that's the Commerce Secretary, on bringing manufacturing back to the United States and how we're going to do that, and how the Tesla Optimus robot is involved. And then I also have a really interesting Ethereum chart that I'd like to show y'all. So let's go ahead and dive in. So first thing here, White House says President Trump will not accept a situation where Wall Street is allowed to run the economy. So what's he saying here? Well, for a very long time, Wall Street has had a lot of influence, and I'm not picking sides here. This is not, I'm just interpreting what's going on. But basically, companies want to have high profit margins, and what tariffs do is it erodes profit margins. So you import a good and they put a tariff on it. Well, the first thing that's going to happen is the exporting country and the importing company, they're going to have to come to terms on new profit margins, essentially. So how much can you absorb into your profit margin versus how much I can absorb into my profit margin? And then whatever's left over that they can't swallow gets passed on to the consumer. That's the immediate effects of inflation. And so basically what he's saying here, my interpretation of it, is that he doesn't care about company profits. And that's why we've seen the stock market sell off so much, because essentially stocks are repricing companies not being as profitable as they have in the past. So that's basically what he's talking about here. So now I want to go into the Howard Lutnick his comments. So have a listen.
Do you think by moving everything back as you describe it that they're going to be able to be competitive globally? Aren't prices ultimately going to actually have to rise?
I think if you want to buy things from other countries and you want to bring it into America, then the price is going to rise. But if you make it here, then of course the price won't rise. So make it here. Make it here. How hard is that to say? Just keep repeating it to yourself. There's no tariff if you make it here. So TSMC, the biggest chip manufacturer, says, okay, I'll make it here. You're going to watch everybody come to that realization. Apple, who builds it all in China. Why are they building it all in China and giving us our iPhone? Why don't they make it here? They used to say we don't have...
It's cheaper. One answer, Mr. Secretary, is that wages are lower over there.
And now there are robots who can do it.
Now, that's really interesting that he brings up this robot thing. And I had talked about this like a couple months ago. And I think what he's referring to here is the Tesla robot, the Optimus robot. So I want you to take a look at another clip here. Look at this robot. Look at the dexterity in its hand. It's just absolutely incredible. And so the biggest thing here is just the hand movements, because there's so many little joints and so much dexterity involved in the human hand that it allows for essentially this robot to take on any task. I mean, so long as the software is there, the software you train it to do these things, which I imagine we can with AI. It can do anything from folding clothes to screwing in little screws on an iPhone. And so the big, game changer with the robot is they're expecting that wages from this robot, essentially like what it would cost, the equivalent is something like 50 cents an hour, whereas labor costs over in China, it's $3.70 on the absolute low end. And then I think it gets up to like $6.70 on the higher end for more skilled labor. Now, I think this is a bit crazy because if you think about it, this would take a lot of time to build out. So the robot itself, Elon Musk is actually, from my understanding, using them in the factory right now, in the Tesla factory, just doing little helpful task type things and experimenting with it. But they're going to be bringing them to mass market at the end of this year. So he estimates that there's going to be demand for these robots, like billions of them across the world. So I think that this is a really good opportunity to buy into Tesla stock, especially with how the price has been pulling back with all the tariff fear and stuff going on. Because if you're able to build a position in Tesla, now these robots can be made a lot quicker than like the cars, and they have a similar profit margin. So one of these sells for like $25,000 to $35,000, I believe. So I mean, it's basically like a person's annual salary. You buy one, and then you just got to recharge it. But if they start mass producing it, this Optimus robot could dwarf the profit margins on their cars, and their main seller could be these robots. So I think that Tesla long term is an incredible investment because of this. It's not a car company in my opinion, and they're more of a tech company. So I think that the Tesla trade is another really good trade that's in the market because of the potential of the Optimus robot. So now let's take a look at the Ethereum chart here. And we're basically just in a long-term channel, right? And what I did was I cloned the prior bull run to kind of give us an idea of what could we expect after this dip. And so being that we talked about yesterday how the M2 money supply is starting to go up, and you can see that that is what triggers as soon as the M2 money supply goes above the blue DEMA, that's what triggers the bull run. And so we're above it now, and we're trending higher above it. So I expect that this is the start of the official bull run, and especially with China, because China has said to stabilize their economy, their stock market, due to the tariffs. They're pumping liquidity in the market, and so that is part of global liquidity. So if we see a rebound like this, and what I find really interesting is how well this parallel here caught the exact, pretty much where we are. And then if you look at other price points, like right here, how it comes right down to that parallel, touches it, and reverses. So I really like the way that the price is fitting within this channel. So we could see something where towards the end of the year, let's see, this would be September-ish, we're back at the highs around 4,000, and then maybe trend sideways a little bit before breaking through that, and then we're off to new highs all the way up to, if it follows this channel, we're looking at 30,000 for Ethereum, sometime I would say December to February 2027, December 2026. So now we're getting news that South Korea says that it's not going to fight back against the U.S. And seek to negotiate. They're going to seek to negotiate a new trade deal. So that's good news because we do some trade with South Korea. It's one of those Southeast Asian countries. Honestly, the more countries that we're not having to fight with, the better. That's just better for the economy. It's really, I think China's going to be the real stickler about this, and they're the ones that are saying that they're going to go to battle, and that's exactly what they're doing. So they sold off 50 billion worth of treasuries, and so what that does is, because treasuries are priced on demand, so if you suddenly flood the market with a lot more treasuries, that means the price of a treasury bond, the price to purchase it, goes down. But that means that the interest rate on a treasury bond goes up. So, for example, they're like inversely correlated. So, for example, say that the price of a treasury bond is $200 and you sell a ton of treasuries and the price of that treasury bond is now $100. Well, if the interest rate was at 2%, now it's at 4% because it's a relative thing, right? So it dilutes out the interest rate that people are getting. So they're doing this because they're fighting back against the tariffs that we impose on them. They know that the U.S. government needs to refinance 9.2 trillion worth of its debt. And by making the 10-year yield go up, they are making it more expensive for the United States whenever they have to refinance their debt. So basically the United States is costing them money through tariffs, so they're costing the United States money through making the yields go up. So there's a lot of different things that can happen here. The Fed might step in. There's all kinds of things if it gets too crazy. Just kind of have to keep an eye on that. And so they sold that first 50 billion, and then that was, I believe, yesterday. And then today we're getting news that they sold another 50 billion worth of U.S. Treasuries. So they just keep dumping them. And, one way that they could fight back, something I've been talking about on the channel, is how the government is really pushing this stablecoin legislation. Well, what do stablecoins do? They have to be backed by real world assets. And David Sachs, the crypto czar, said that they have to be backed, or they're going to use stablecoins to create trillions in demand for U.S. treasuries. So this could be part of the plan here, is that, if they anticipated they're going to be going to trade war with China, and that they anticipated that China would start dumping bonds, because I believe they did this last time, the first term whenever Trump was in, which would cause rates to go up. And to combat that, they're really pushing this stablecoin legislation to create a ton of demand for U.S. treasuries to bring interest rates down while China is selling U.S. treasuries. And so Apple apparently... Apple flies in 5 planes full of iPhones into the U.S. to avoid tariffs. So I thought that was kind of funny, but I mean, it's certainly worth it, to avoid the more expensive tariffs and still make some profit while you can. All right, so I think that pretty much wraps up this video. I'll keep you all updated. You have any comments, questions, concerns, drop them in the comment section down below, and I'll see you on the next one.